All right, guys, happy Friday. We made it, huh? Isn't that exciting? Today we're going to talk about rates. I've got a lot of questions about rates. Rates have gone up considerably since the beginning of the year. And the reason behind the rate jump, or at least the advertised reason, is that inflation has gone up so much that the easiest, strongest way for the country, the leadership, the Fed to control it is increasing the rates, right? So when you increase the rates, banks, credit cards, loans are able to pull money and lend on that money, right? So they're borrowing the money from one place, lending it to another. And the rates that you and I get from those different companies are based on the rate that they're able to get from the Fed, right? So if the Fed increases their rate, then of course they've got to pass it on to consumers who purchase homes or credit cards or cars or anything else, right? So the rates have gone up, and I'll tell you, rates mid-year last year were down in the low twos. I heard, but I didn't see some that were in the upper ones. I bought last year. I think I bought in June or July. My rate was 2.25, right? Right now, some of the most recent rates I've seen, I'm not a lender, but this is probably 5-6 days old. This is the last time I saw some rates that came out. We were at about 5.25, right? Now, those rates can change for a slew of reasons, right? Even today, if you've got worse credit or a different situation, or you're 1099 and you haven't had maybe full 2 years in, or you've got some odd situations where the bank's got to take a little bit more risk on you, reason after reason after reason, your rates could be higher, lower, or anything in between, right? But the average 30-year rate, last I checked, was around 5.25, and it's increasing. So the Fed came out the other day, the Fed chair, and said that most rate hikes tend to be around 0.25%, right? Jump it up just a little bit, let's see what happens. Jump it up a little bit, let's see what happens. He said they're more likely to do a double rate hike in the next month or two than they will to do a single rate hike. Again, a single rate hike is about 0.25%. A double rate hike is going to be 0.5%. So the rates are probably going to jump up, and it's probably going to continue in correlation with inflation. If inflation continues to go up, those rates will likely go up. If inflation starts to curb because of the increased rates, they might pull back a little bit, right? You never know. Nobody has a crystal ball, but that's kind of the thought behind it. Honestly, though, if you ask 10 different professionals, you're going to get 10 different answers. I think what I'm telling you is probably the prevailing thought. But if you've got any other ideas and you're in the real estate industry, the lending industry, the financials industry, I'd love to hear what you think. But everything I'm seeing, and if I were a betting man, I would definitely bet on the fact that it's going to increase over the next 3 to 6 months, right? And again, if your question is, okay, well, how high is it going to go? It really depends on inflation. That is the reason they're doing it. In my opinion, I'm not seeing any other reason to raise the rates. The biggest drive behind it is to try to curb that inflation. So the question then becomes, I don't know. It depends on what inflation does, right? So we kind of got to watch that and see what happens. So if you were a buyer on the market right now, the question is, okay, do I buy now? Do I wait? What do I do? Rates are so high. I don't want to buy. I wish I had these lower rates. I'll tell you this. Don't let the fact that you missed the boat stop you now. If now would work and it's the best financial decision for you, do it, because it looks like rates are going to go up, right? If you can't afford rates right now and it's going to take you out of contention, I wouldn't want you making a decision that really pulls you out of your budget either, right? You got to look at plan B. Now, plan B might suck too, because honestly, plan B for a lot of people right now is, I'll just rent. As if somehow magically renting is cheaper. Renting is not cheaper. Rent has gone up incredibly over the last maybe year or two as well, right? As home prices have gone up, rent has gone up as well. And you might ask, well, why? It doesn't make any sense. Well, think about it. If I'm an investor and I was able to purchase a home at a lower rate, right, a year or two ago, and the market was not as hot as it is now, and prices were lower, I could get it at a price where when I had you come in, my renter, and I wanted to make maybe 100, 200, 300 bucks a month after all my expenses were paid from the rent you gave me, I could charge this much in rent, right? But now with prices going up and the cost of being able to grab a loan and use that money from a bank, that's gone up. I'm going to have to charge you more, right, to be able to get that same $100, $200, $300. So because of that, rent has gone up as well. And even if you say, well, yeah, Joe, but a lot of these guys, they've owned this place forever. They don't need to raise their rates. That's 100% true, right? They're still paying roughly the same amount. Maybe taxes have gone up, insurance have gone up, but that's pretty minimal compared to what you would have to charge in rent. But when it comes down to it, any reasonable person who's gotten into an investment property, if they know they're charging $1,200 and they know that rents have gone up to $2,000 on a property that's identical to theirs, who in their right mind is not, as an investor, as someone who's trying to better the situation of themselves and their family, and they took a risk on purchasing a property to make a profit for their futures, who's not going to see that and raise the rent, right? Most people are going to. Now they're going to raise it to $2,000. Maybe they'll raise it to $1,800, $1,900 to try to be nice to you, something like that. But I'm hearing story after story after story of these like just incredible rental hikes. So really, should I buy now or shouldn't I buy? If it's tight on your budget, I would look at your plan B. And I would take what I said about rents into consideration when looking at your plan B. One thing we're seeing right now too is if you're kind of on the cusp of being able to afford a home and you're nervous about it, or maybe it did push you a little bit out, you don't want to go over your budget. A lot of people are either renting together as multifamilies. Maybe you're living with mom and dad, or maybe you're living with your brother and sister, or maybe it's two couples that are starting to live together, or friends who live together. Or you can purchase together. I just had a couple clients, and I think this is the second one I've worked on in the last 6 months, where it was two separate families that came together, got approved together, and purchased the property together. So we're seeing that as well. Is it ideal? No, nobody wants to do it, and those two didn't want to do it either. But they knew that if they went in by themselves, they were going to put themselves in a more uncomfortable position financially than they would be in when you look at the discomfort of living with someone else, right? Is that uncomfortable? Yes, but is it as uncomfortable as not being able to afford your mortgage? No. So it's a challenging decision to make, but that's the decision they made, right? So now looking at this from a seller's impact, right? Do I sell now? Is now the time to sell? Because in a month, 2 months, 3 months, prices might change because of these increased rates. You don't know. And I'll tell you, we've been looking at the numbers, and by we, I mean my team, for the last 26 days, right? Since rates have been going up, I said, guys, you're going to hear buyers tell you that with rates going up, prices have to come down, so let's wait 2-3 months, right? Let's look at the stats. Let's not make up our own stories. Let's look at the actual statistics. And we looked at the statistics. We saw that inventory has not changed at all in Port St. Lucie. From memory, I don't have it on me, but I want to say, and I've got this on my page. You can go look at my page. You'll see it. But I want to say in Port St. Lucie, single-family homes 26 days ago, there were 365 available. Now there's 368 available. So it's an addition of 3, almost nothing, right? When you look at the 7-day sales 26 days ago of single-family homes, there were 71. When I looked 2 days ago, it had jumped from 71 to 80, right? That's a double-digit increase percentage-wise over 26 days ago. So that was pretty interesting to see, right? Sales are going up. And then I looked at the median asking price, right? And the asking price had gone up almost 2%. It was 1.95%. And I thought, okay, well, the asking price goes up. Maybe that's because sellers are asking more than their homes are worth. It's inflated asking prices. They're not real. So I looked at actual sales prices over a 7-day span. I looked 26 days ago, and then I looked 2 days ago, and it had gone up 4.04%. Those are tangible sales prices, prices that are not inflated. They actually happened, right? A buyer said yes, and an appraiser came through and said, we agree with you. Lender, give them the money. So when you're looking at that, not to mention, there was one more stat we looked at, the amount of supply, right? Inventory on the shelves. We judge this based on, or we calculate this based on, there's a couple different ways you can calculate it. The way we calculate it is we were looking at what is the average amount of homes that we're selling per day over the last 7 days. And if we sold at that rate, looking at the current amount of homes that are on the market, we don't take any new listings, how long would it take to get through today's inventory? And it was 35.98 days. That is a seller's market. Anything under 3 months, in my opinion, is a very strong seller's market. 35.98 days. In just 24 days, that inventory number had dropped to 32.2. I think from memory, it was a 10.5% reduction in inventory rates, right? So you're seeing that while the inventory is staying the same, sales are picking up. So the amount of inventory we have on is no longer 35.98 days. It's only 32.2. So I've actually seen sales pick up. That begs the question, okay, if I'm a seller, that doesn't make sense. Should I continue to think that the numbers are going to go up, or are these rates going to curb it? We don't know. Nobody knows, and you won't know until it happens. But I can tell you so far with the rate increases, so far with what we've seen in the news, so far with what we've seen in the stock market, so far with the amount of people that have been coming from the Northeast, from New York, from New Jersey, from Maryland, from Pennsylvania, Michigan. These are the biggest areas I'm seeing people come down in. So far, it's created a strengthened market for sellers while these rates have been increasing. Do I think if rates go to some ridiculously high number, it's going to curb those numbers? Absolutely. The question is, what's that number and will we hit it? And I just don't know. So I will say right now, if you're a buyer and you're kind of on the fence and you can afford to buy, I think buying in the next week or two is probably a smarter decision than waiting 2, 3, 4 months, because rates, everything I'm seeing says rates are going to be higher. If you're going to hold out, right, and you're going to maybe rent. Now, if you've already got a house and you're sitting there, that's a decent position to be in, right? Because you've got that better rate. I assume you're paying down your mortgage, not somebody else's mortgage who you're renting from. That's a good decision. If you're thinking, I'm just going to wait for rates to come down and I'm going to rent, look at the amount that you're paying your landlord every month, multiplied by 12 months or 24 months or however long you might need to wait there, right? And this is assuming rates come down. Look at what that amount's going to be, right? So if it's $2,000 a month times 12 months, that's $24,000. If you had purchased a home with the same exact payment and you were paying down your mortgage for that 12 months at a higher rate that you're not happy with, and you were able to get the tax benefits, and you took part in the appreciation that we're seeing with homes right now, and forget the double digits appreciations that we're seeing. I would never bet on that as an investor. I would always bet on 3 to 5% increases annually over time. Figure that as an investor. If you look at the financial difference between now and a year from now, and say rates even drop 0.5% or 1% from where we're at, number one, will that be enough to make you buy? And number two, what will the numbers look like difference-wise? Those are some pretty strong questions to ask yourself, right? And the last thing I'll leave you with is this. This was presented to me once, and I thought, man, that's so true. It's easy to look at charts, right? Rate charts or price charts that do this, and you look at it and you think, why would anybody buy at this high point? Why wouldn't they buy over here at this low point? Why would anybody get a home when rates are high? Why wouldn't they have purchased when it was low? But the thing is, you don't know what it's going to do. It's easy to look at a chart from a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years ago and say, why wouldn't you do this? But when you're in the midst of it, nobody really knows what home prices are going to do right now. We can guess. We've got data supported, everything else, but nobody knows. When you look at what happened in 2007, 2008, I mean, there's movies out there that show so few people really knew that the market was going to change that drastically, right? It surprised a lot of people. So nobody knows what's going to happen. In my opinion, this is something that I stand by. This is something I teach my kids. This is something I share with my friends and family members. You need to look at what the best decision for you today is. Don't assume rates are going to go up or down or anything. If it works today and it makes sense today, and you look at what you would lose in renting for a year versus having bought and gotten today's rate, after all the appreciation, paying down your own mortgage and the tax benefits included, just make a simple decision, right? And if it's the wrong one, you've got to remember, had you rented, you still would have been out as well. So it's not a complete loss, right? If you're right, you've positioned yourself pretty well. So just some things to think about. But again, stick to that budget. I can't say that enough, right? Don't put yourself in a comfortable position, whether it's buying, renting, anything, ever, honestly. Don't ever put yourself in an uncomfortable position. Let me take that back. In a comfortable position, right? Like a comfortable house, a comfortable car, a comfortable whatever, if it's going to put you in an uncomfortable financial position. I always support making the strong financial decision and living in a little discomfort. Because, man, when you've got strong financial backing, when you've got money in the bank, when you've got credit cards with nothing on them, you feel confident, you feel stress-free. So be very careful with that, right? What's Nate sharing here? Let's pull it up. Nate is an incredible lender up in, I want to say Melbourne, but correct me, bud. If I'm wrong, correct me. Maybe Sebastian. I have some amazing stats and charts I can share about the cost of waiting to buy versus renting, but who wants to see all those? I do. I'm a nerd, man. I can tell that you just lost appreciation and amortization alone. I can tell you that just the lost appreciation and amortization alone is worth its weight in gold. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll say this. All right, Melbourne. Thanks, bud. I'll say this too. A lot of times we let our emotions take over, right? And we say, I don't like the rates compared to 6 months ago, 12 months ago. I don't like the prices compared to 6 months ago, 12 months ago. And we'll let an opportunity go by us because we're remembering the greener grass from before. Forget the grass before. The grass is gone. The grass could be incredibly green in 2, 3, 4 weeks. It could be brown. We have no idea. But what you know today is that either it makes sense or it doesn't make sense for you, your family, and your finances. And you should make a decision on that, in my opinion. If you guys have any questions, if you want to talk about this a little bit more, you can DM me anytime. A lot of people DM me and don't use me. A lot of people DM me and do use me as a realtor. I want to help everybody out. It does not matter if you want to use me or not. Always, always, always know that I'm a resource here. I'm never going to sell you on anything, but I do want to make sure that you're thinking logically before you pull the trigger on something, right? Some people need to be pushed because it's a good decision. Some people need to be held back because it's not going to be a great decision for you. I want to help you with that either way, but really look at the numbers. Don't use emotion. Look at those numbers and make a good, logical, strong, educated decision. Guys, have an absolutely fired up Friday. Take care.